Hi, Jim.
And we're
Hi,
gonna
Jim.
we're gonna start it off with the pledge with the soon-to-be vacationing Kira Duvernoy.
You guys are my last stop before getting out of here. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the United
the
States
United States of America,
and to the
And to the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
One
nation,
nation,
under God,
Under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty and
and
justice for all.
justice for
all
all.
someday.
Someday. We do aspire.
great. Thank you. Thank you, Kira.
You.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everybody. We're so glad you're here on a Saturday morning. It's either this or go work on the yard, right? You want to do that today. So we're really glad you're here. Thanks for coming. We've got a very activist-oriented meeting today. We're going to meet a bunch of candidates, and we're going to find out about some upcoming events and hopefully get as many of you as possible hooked. Okay, we're trying to hook you this time. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows how to use the chat because we're going to use it a lot this morning to get a lot of information onto the chat so that you can then copy and use it. It's down in the lower. You click chat and then you see it in the lower right hand side, and you can either chat to everybody because it'll say everyone at the top of that little window, or if you press the arrow next to it, you can see a list of everybody at the meeting, and you can pick a person and send it to him. We're going to be asking you to ask your questions to our speakers by the chat this time because we got a lot of people to get through, and we want to do that part as chop as possible. And again, when you leave, don't forget to save the chat. You go down to the chat area there and you click on the little buttons, and one of them says save chat, and it'll save it to your computer. Then you have to find it in your computer, but that's not that hard to do. Okay? So if you put something on before 10 o'clock, you might want to put it on again because as people join, they don't see anything that was added before they got there. So you just put something on and then Joe Schmo shows up in 2 minutes. He's not going to see it. So put it on now or a little later than now while people are joining. Okay, I just want to tell you that we're getting very, very, very busy as a party. Here are some things that are going on right now. First of all, I want to thank the Candidate Search Project folks. Thanks to Jane Wild, Kira Duvernoy, Mike Ross, Barry Hahn, Mary Roebling, Mark Willett Green, and Chris Kitzman. We've been meeting since November on this stuff and meeting frequently and going over lists and calling people and meeting people, and it's just been quite a process, but the results have been quite good, and we'll hear more about that soon. So thanks, you guys. You've been real troopers. And I'd also like to thank the LTE group, which is doing so well. We talked about this during the Clatch a little bit. They're doing so well with the letter writing. And Rick, I know you're there, so please put your name and email in there and a little note to people if somebody else wants to help out this group. We've got some very good writers, but we're always looking for more. And we're getting letters into the Record Patriot and the Northern Express and sometimes the Record Eagle, and it's been a great thing. The Lookouts project is going well. We still need some lookouts though, and please, if you are at all interested, we need coverage, people to go to a meeting once a month in Crystal Lake, Weldon, Lake, and Blaine townships. And if you email me at jimdulzo@gmail.com, I'll get you started. And we'll look in a few minutes here when we're touring the website just a little bit on how you can get information on each of the townships. We've got it all right at our website, and you'll see that in a little bit. Please put Saturday, May 14th on your calendar. We're going to be doing a nice event that day to raise money for our scholarship fund for trade school or college scholarships for at least one senior from Benzie Central and one from Frankfurt, Alberta, we hope. And we're going to have a nice event. We're still putting the final touches on it. You'll hear about it very soon. But please put the 14th, that's a Saturday in May, on your calendar, particularly towards the evening. We think that's where it's going to land. And also, please consider signing up for Voters Not Politicians. That's the group that is circulating the Promote the Vote petition. We'll be hearing a little bit more about that later on, but they do need some more volunteers. This is very, very important to protect our ability to have our government reflect who the people in Michigan really are. And one more very big red letter date, the broadband project in Benzie goes before the county commissioners in a special meeting on April 26th at 1:30 p.m. at the Government Center. There's been a subcommittee working on broadband. They're going to submit a report to the county commission, and we need people there to make sure that the county commission takes this seriously and does the right thing with this, not just hand it off to a company and call it good. It's got to be way more than that. I've got a piece about that was in the Record Patriot only for a while. It was pulled for some complicated reasons that have nothing to do with the content of the thing. That is on our Facebook page. I'll put a link up for it for those of you who are Facebookers. We will be mounting that on our website as well. It's important to read it before you go because you need some background so you know what's going on. We will promote this aggressively too. I'm just announcing it now. Put the 26th of April at 1:30 in the afternoon on your calendar if you care about broadband in Benzie. Okay? All right. And with that, we will now move on to Barry Hahn, who will talk to us about Promote the Vote. Barry?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I just put something in the chat for people who might be interested in helping us get signatures. There are several of us doing Benzie County right now. Barb Skirtall and Alan McCullough, right? Carol Edmonds, Marcia Curran, Ann Straley, myself, Joan McKay and Marcia Curran are leaders. Anyway, you may have heard there's an evil empire out there that is, they lost a few elections and now they've struck back. We are having our Return of the Jedi moment here. So it's our chance to Promote the Vote signatures. Promote the Vote 2022 initiative would, and I'm going to read these bullet points: stop harassment or intimidation of voters by adding language in the Michigan Constitution. Request to have absentee ballots mailed to you for all future elections, once and done. 9 days of early voting, including 2 weekends before Election Day. It'll keep elections secure. Notice the word keep. Voters must show photo ID or sign a legal document if voting in person. No credit card numbers or whatever, like they're doing in Texas or wherever that is. Ensures funding for secure drop boxes, ballot postage, discloses donations for polling places and other charitable donations. There's online absentee ballot tracking so voters can be confident their votes are counted. More options for voting early and more secure, accountable public audits. Anyway, this is all about making our elections more secure, more modern, and accessible in Michigan. And if you sign, you get one of these cute little stickers. I don't know where I am on here, but I can't see myself. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. I got lost. There's too many pages, so many people. This is good.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Yep.
Am I doing fine? Okay.
You're doing fine.
Anyway, this is going on right now. We're circulating, we're getting signatures. And if you have any questions or information that we can contact you with, check out the chat.
I would like to add something. Thank you, Barry. This is Marcia Curran talking. We do need to get going pretty fast, and the weather's been awful and there aren't any outdoor activities. So it's a little hard to find large groups of people where we can collect signatures. What we really need is for people to invite us to the organizations they belong to so that we can make a presentation and bring our petitions and perhaps get some signatures. So if you could let me know, or Barry's going away, so
right.
Please let me know. I'll put my email and my phone number in the chat, and we'd love to have ideas where we can make presentations.
Barb's
you.
online right now too. Barb Skirdahl. Yeah, it's kind of fun. People are very interested and they've already heard some good things. Pretty easy
Marcia,
signatures.
I've made the request at Michigan Shores,
Thank you.
and they're going to get back to me in a couple of days.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay, that's a great report from the both of you. Thank you very, very much. Next up, and again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Mark, if you keep an eye out for questions, if we have any. We're trying to encourage a little more conversation during this part of the meeting. Next up, Michael Hertz, is there anything you'd like to say very quickly about the reproductive rights petition that's going on and how people might find and sign it?
Absolutely. I hope everybody knows that the ACLU is spearheading a reproductive freedom for all petition that would repeal the 1931 Michigan law banning abortion and create a new individual right to reproductive freedom, including all decisions regarding pregnancy, including abortion, in the Michigan legislature. We have petitions over at Benzie Dem headquarters. Currently, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're open Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 12 to 3. Please feel free to stop by and sign. There will be other signing opportunities. We're planning a large, actually a couple of petition signing events at Bryant Park in Traverse City. So spread the word. If you wish to be able to collect signatures and join the team, please contact me. I'll send you the links so that you can sign up, go through the training, and start circulating petitions in your own social crew.
Great. Thank you very much. Mark, has anybody typed any questions into the chat about the reproductive rights petition?
I'd like to go back to Sylvia McCullough's comment about suggestion about doing a Protect the Vote pop-up in a park.
Okay. We are going to do some pop-ups, so that might be a good way to get it started. That's good.
I like that idea. And I know a park.
Yeah. You know a couple parks.
I was there this morning for about an hour.
Okay, great. Well, let's move along here then. And I forgot to say this in my opening remarks, but I'll say it now. Listen, we had this great meeting at headquarters last week. We did food. It was to talk to people about getting involved this year, and a good way to do it is precinct delegates. So that was the point of the meeting. But what blew us away is how many people showed up. We had close to 50 people there eating food and getting together and kind of reuniting after a long time apart. I want to know everybody's thoughts, and please, every one of you, if you've got a thought on this, please put it in the chat. We're going to look very closely at every one of them.
Hey, Dave.
What do you think?
Where do you want me to sit now?
Thanks. We want you to please use the chat and tell us, would you like these meetings to go back to in-person meetings at headquarters? Would you like to do that? I can't promise you that we'll be able to do a good Zoom around it. We tried that once before, kind of a hybrid thing. I wasn't really happy with the results. We might work at that, but we just want to know, would you go to a meeting at headquarters now? And let us know. And if you don't, let us know. And let us know what conditions you would go to a meeting under. We really want to hear from you about this, because we're seeing a lot of different parties start to do this, and we saw all these people show up last week for our dinner. So please use the chat and let us know about this, okay? Do that before you leave. Don't forget, it's really, really, really important. Okay, so next up here, one of the great things that's happened is that our website has drastically improved over the last year or year and a half, and a lot of that has to do with hard work from Greta Bolger. And Greta is going to take us on a little tour through a couple different parts of the website today. Greta, do you want to do that? yourself, or should I share the screen for you?
She's not there. She's pissed.
You're lucky I muted.
Mm.
They'd all be able to hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
Okay.
I'm ready and I have the screen up.
Okay, great. I'll give you the screen share then, just a second.
Yep.
Oops. Okay, you can do the screen share now.
Okay. As Jim said, we've done a lot of improvements to the website. We've gotten rid of a lot of things that were outdated and no longer useful. It's much cleaner now and it's full of good information. I don't know how often you visit the website. I'm just going to show you a couple of things today that are some improvements that provide really good information that you might want to look at more regularly. And the first thing is the county and township lookout reports. We talked about that already a little bit. We're currently running an ad campaign, electronic ad campaign in the Record Patriot regarding these reports.
Yes.
We have township lookouts that cover these meetings, which are generally monthly. There's probably another half dozen at least that need to be covered. But in the meantime, you can sign up to receive reports from your township monthly, or you can see them on the Facebook page and on this website. But if you click through, what you'll see is the most recent report at the top, and then I will be adding the reports up above, so that the most recent report is always at the top. If you're interested at all in becoming a lookout, Jim or Mary Roebling can help you with that and help you sign up. It's not a lot of work. We have somebody that edits the reports for consistency, and you can see there's an archive of past reports also that connects to the Facebook page, so you can look at those as well. And then say you live in Elmira Township or Gilmore, or you want to, try to help the Board of Commissioners become more enlightened. One of the things that you can do then is if you see a report that that you'd like to comment on, also on the website under About Benzie, we have all the contact information for all the townships. So if there's an issue that you want to address within the township or within the county commission, that information is also available here. So like I said, we've cleaned it up a lot. It's a lot more useful than it used to be. Current events are on the home page, and our meetings and events are also here. So please check out the website when you get an opportunity, and I hope it gives you.
Jim,
Great, Greta. Thank you very much.
Jim, real
Yes.
quick, a lot of people are responding on the chat. Do we need to save periodically? Is somebody doing that?
What's that?
Do we need to save periodically, or can we just save at the end?
Save at the end.
And we'll catch all the comments about.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, okay. Okay, so thank you, Greta. Thank you very much for that. One of the things we are looking for is people to be election workers. We're going to hear about that in just a second here from Jana Goldman. And once again, if you want to do that, what you would do is go to our website and go right there to Township Villages and stuff under About Benzie, and then all the contact information, their hours, their phone number, the name of the clerk, all of that stuff is right there. Jana, would you like to talk to us about the voting ballot inspectors, or whatever we're calling them this week?
Yeah, and thanks, Jim. And it is a little confusing because there are different names for different things. The three possibilities that I'm familiar with are watcher, challenger, or poll worker, sometimes called in Michigan an election inspector, which is kind of confusing. But I am more familiar with poll worker because we're the ones who actually greet you at the polls. We sign you in, we make sure that you're registered to vote, that all your credentials are correct, and give you the ballot, escort you to the place where you can vote, take your ballot, put it in the tabulator, thank you for voting, give you the little sticker, and escort you out. And that's a very important thing. And you don't have to be, I live in Homestead Township, but I've been a poll worker in Joyfield Township. So you don't have to be, live in the township where you are working. And so definitely you can register, sign up with the clerks. And as Jim said, we have a list of those on our website. You do get paid. It varies from township to township, but according to ziprecruiter.com, as of February 9th, 2022, the average pay for a poll worker is about $13.97 an hour. The only people who have to be there all day, which sometimes I know can be a deterrent for people, are the chief judges. So there is some sort of continuity for information, but they usually have two shifts. One would be the early shift, would be 6 in the morning to about 3 in the afternoon. And the other would be 3 in the afternoon until closing. The polls close at 8, and then it usually takes about an hour or so, depending on how efficient you are, to clean up and make sure everything is in the right bag and get things going. It's very rewarding. I've been doing this for about 25 years. I absolutely love it. And outside of the important thing of voting, which we all should be doing, this is another way that you can help people vote. You're helping them to safely and securely cast their ballot. And if you don't think that it matters, a lot of places, as we all know, are trying to suppress the vote. They're limiting places where people can vote, causing long lines, discouraging people from working at the polls. And, if you get a voter who says, well, it really doesn't matter, it's just one vote, it does matter. And I like to bring up the instance that happened in Virginia in 2017 in the House of Delegates. It came down to an even tie between the Democrat and the Republican. They actually had to put the names into those little film canisters that we used to get, put it in a ceramic bowl, and somebody put their hand in, picked out one of the canisters, and that was the winner. And unfortunately, it was the Republican, and that really swung the balance of power in the Virginia House for quite a while. So it's a one small instance, but voting is important. It matters, and there are ways that you can get involved. You can also be a challenger. You can be a watcher. And the Secretary of State's office has a wonderful website, all sorts of information for people who are interested. They have videos that tell you what your rights and responsibilities are. That website is www.michigan.gov/SOS, and I'll definitely put that in the chat. Anybody who wants to ask me any questions can do so in the chat, or if you know how to contact me, I'd be happy to talk. But this is near and dear to my heart, and I'm just so delighted to share my experience from Maryland and here in Michigan. And I hope to see some of you at the polls.
Jana, thank you
Yes.
for that presentation. That was great. I love working at the polls too. And I've only been a challenger, which just to add a little information, you don't get paid if you're a challenger.
That's correct. That's correct. Or a watcher.
You are chosen by the party that you represent, and you are
That's correct.
You sort of oversee what is going on and make notes. Yeah, it's great work to see how everybody works together.
Yep.
Both parties.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Marcia. And thank you, Jana, for that great presentation. We really appreciate it. Please seriously consider doing this. We've told the executive committee, we've all agreed among ourselves, we're going to do this. It's important to have Democrats at all of these places, and particularly show people we're not intimidated. We're Democrats. We're showing up. We're ready to play. Okay, great. Next up here, Mary Roebling will talk to us a little bit about precinct delegates. Go ahead, Mary.
Hi, you all. First of all, thank you so much for coming last week. We had over 45 people, we think. for dinner and fellowship and lots of fun. And some of you signed up to be precinct delegates at that point. Just for a quickie, the precinct delegate is the first level of elected official. It is the one that is closest to the people. It's the grassroots, and it acts as a conduit between the grassroots, the community, and the party. So it informs, and it goes both ways. If the party has a need in your community, it will talk to the precinct delegate, and precinct delegates can organize some friends and do that. And vice versa. If something's going wrong in a community, the precinct delegate goes to the party, calls Jim and says, hey, we need some help with this. It's a fun job. There are times when you're more busy and times when you're less busy. I've been one since my 20s. Too. So we now have, you have to do three things. You got to get an affidavit and you got to fill it out. You've got to get it notarized and you got to hand it in to the clerk. And we're moving ahead. More of you are volunteering than before, ever before. And we're excited, but we still need more. We need at least 2 in every precinct. And so if you've got questions, I'll put my number in the chat, but my number's everywhere in all bathrooms in the county. And, you know, it's all I can tell you is I've been doing it for a long time. It's a fun job. You get to know your neighbors and you really get to support your local candidates. Any questions?
It's your big
Mark?
chance.
Jim, did you say something?
I was just going to say it's your big chance to find out who the other Democrats are, you know, in your part of the county.
I know, you could be surprised. It could be the person next door.
Yeah, you might not even know. They're too anyway. Mark, do you see any questions in there from anybody?
Tom Reichard writes, how do I volunteer to be a Dem poll watcher? Are Benzie Dems recruiting people?
If you want to be a poll inspector, the paid position, you contact a township. And that's why you go to Benzie Democrats and then go to the township listing, and it gives you all the townships. You don't have to do it in your own township. If you want to be a poll challenger, which is the other major thing, that happens through the party. We'll be talking about that later. We won't be talking about it today. There's a deadline coming up to sign up to be a poll inspector, a paid polling inspector, and that's what we're concentrating on today. We'll talk about the other in the future. But thank you for the question, Tom.
I just remembered something. We've got, you have until May 3rd at 4 o'clock to sign up to be a precinct delegate. So 17 days, you guys.
And an addendum to that is that Jamie Brantz writes that she's a notary public if anybody needs to sign up before the May 3rd deadline.
Oh, that's
Hot
great.
dog.
Benzonia, Jim, this is Kat. Benzonia Township can have 15 precinct delegates. I'm signing up, and it would be great to have that slate full for the election.
It sure would. Thank you, Kat.
We do that, we'll win.
Yeah, we really will win.
That's simple. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Put them in the chat. We'll see them and get back to you and answer you. Okay? Great. Thank you. All right. Next up here, first of all, a shout out to Connor Priest. He is here for Betsy Kofia. Betsy spoke to us a couple times, so she won't be speaking today, but Connor wants you to know that if you want to get involved in Betsy's campaign, she's running for the 103rd House District against our friend Jack O'Malley, but you have to live in Platte or Elmira townships to vote for her. That's where that newly drawn district is. It's not the rest of the county. We'll have more information on other candidates, other House candidates soon, but Connor, put your contact information in the chat for Betsy Kofia if you want to help her. You don't have to live in those townships to help her, but that's where you'll be able to vote. Okay?
What?
Great.
Jim, appreciate it. I'll put my stuff down in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Connor. Hey, thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah,
Good to
thank
see
you.
you. Yeah, and if you recognize, Connor's name sounds familiar. He worked very hard on Matt Morgan's congressional campaign a couple cycles ago, and it's great to have him back in the House. Thanks, Connor, for all your great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right, now we're getting to the candidate part of this, and we're going to start with the bang here. We hung out with him at a fish fry last night, got to know him a lot better. He's a great guy. He's representative from Muskegon area for 6 years in the State House, now running for State Senate in the new improved 32nd District, which includes Benzie and which is a fairly balanced district. Please, everybody, would you welcome Terry Sabo for a few words from Terry. Thank you, Terry.
Yay.
All right. Thanks, Jim, and all the Benzie Democrats. Yeah, it was a lot of fun last night. We had a chance to, my wife and I had a chance to come up to honor, and we had dinner and a lot of good conversations with some folks. Some of them are on this meeting here today. So it was definitely a good time, and we ended up staying the night and hung around a little bit, visited with some other local folks. So it was just good to get up there and be seen and start shaking some hands. So that's really what's going on with us is for right now, as far as the campaign goes, is just getting this thing started and putting all of our pieces together and making sure that people know exactly who I am when it comes time to when the things get really serious, when we get into the summertime with all the campaigning that'll take place. From all the way on Benzie County, all the way down the lakeshore to Muskegon. So, and we are doing a launch event in each of the 5 counties. Our first one is tonight. It's going to be in Muskegon, and we've got quite a few people that are going to be there. We're expecting probably about 100 people, it sounds like. So we're pretty excited about that. And then we've got some other ones scheduled. The one you're probably most interested in is the one that's coming up. I think it's on the screen now. Is on April 30th, and that's only a couple weeks away, and that's going to be at your headquarters, which, by the way, we saw this morning when we were leaving honor. We saw it, and that's a nice location. So that's something the county attorney ought to be very proud of. So we'll be there from 4 to 6, and I hope you'll get a chance to stop by and say hi and introduce yourself. So not only know that you know me, but I think more importantly, so I know who you are. And we look forward to that. So otherwise, everything is going good. We're in constant communication with the Senate Democrats and campaign team in Lansing, and we're full steam ahead. So I'll leave it there, Jim, and I appreciate you giving me a couple minutes to talk about what our campaign has been doing.
Terry, I'll just say, if somebody has a question, please put it in the chat right now. If you've got a question for Terry, and I just would like him to explain to folks the history of what's going on in the Michigan Senate right now and your race.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that, Jim. It's before it's the new district, and when they redrew this district, they included Muskegon in with it. So it's something that I was very interested in because the numbers are extremely close. It is drawing a tremendous amount of attention already because of how close those numbers are, those base numbers for both sides. It has attracted a lot of statewide attention already, and quite frankly, national attention now. So just, what I mean by that is we've had probably over the course of the last month, I believe it's probably somewhere around 100 contributions from across the country outside of the district. So yes, some from Ann Arbor, some from the southeast Michigan, but we've had them coming in from New York City. One gentleman there contributed $1,000 to our campaign out of New York City. I have no idea who it is, but they all see the implications of what could happen. And what that is because it isn't just about winning this seat. This seat could very well determine who's in the majority in the state Senate in Lansing. And we really think it's going to be the seat that flips the Senate over to Democrat control. And evidently, there's a lot of people across the country that see the same thing. So, Benzie County is going to be in the spotlight, I think, as this campaign moves along. So, look forward to talking to you more about that.
Great, Terry. Thank you. It'll be the first, if we flip the Senate, it'll be the first time in almost 40 years that Democrats 40 years. I said that, 40 years that the Democrats have controlled the state Senate. Mark, do you see any questions there that we should pass along?
No questions.
Okay, great, good. Okay, moving right along. Okay, now it's time for some local candidates, and this is something we're very, very excited about. As I said earlier, we've had a group of recruiting committee folks working since November to try and find folks to run for school board and for county commission. We'll deal with school board in a couple more months because there's a later deadline on that. I will tell you it's going very well. But right now we're going to introduce 3 candidates who have decided they're going to run for county commission in 3 different districts in Benzie. And we're going to start with Karen Cunningham. Karen, you've got 3 minutes to say hello and maybe take a few questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Jim. Karen Cunningham, I'm pretty new to the area. I moved here just before the pandemic happened and bought a house in Frankfurt, so I live right inside. But I'm going to say, Mary, I'm going to come by. I have my petition. I need to get some signatures on, so I need to get it in. But,
Okay, great.
all right, thank you. I do have a little bit of a pedigree here, and I'll speak fast, quickly. My parents and family have lived here for 35 years. My dad was the Crystal Township assessor, so you might like him or you might not. He also worked on getting the fire department, the volunteer department together. My sister started the first medical billing company here in the county. My mother owned a store, and my brother is still building and has a construction business here. So I've been here, and when I first moved here, like I said earlier, my son asked me, so when are you running for office? Because I lived in Arizona in the Phoenix area, and I had an appointed city commission position that I was in and working full-time and a mom and all that other good stuff. But I decided to jump in, stop in at the Democrats, and found out, got my petition and went running as of Thursday. So I did run for city council here in November. The top 3 positions were elected. I was a distant 4th, but I thought that was a pretty good showing considering. And I have served and do serve on VIV, which is Veterans Inspiring Veterans. It's mostly up in the Traverse City area because I lived up there for 2 years. And I'm also on a board that is, I'm a co-chair on VIV, and then Northern Michigan for Veterans. I'm on the board up there where we kind of fill in the gaps for veterans, things that VA doesn't pay for. And we did a big fundraising through VIV and raised over $44,000 in one night. So we did we were very happy with that and still using that fund and having some other fundraisers with that. I am a veteran also. I didn't make it a career, but I was the base exec officer at a command base. And I kind of liken that to being working for the mayor in Washington, DC, because we had all these generals, but we were the commander, so anyways, I see my time is up. If you have questions, please put it in there. I did type my information and I try to get it in the chat. I don't see it on there yet, so you would have my email link and everything. But thank you. I look forward to meeting and working with you guys.
Karen, we look forward to working with you, and thank you so much for standing up and running. We really appreciate it. If you missed it, she's in District 3, which is the city of Frankfurt, and it is also Crystal Lake Township. That's where she would be representing. And if you are, even if you're not, but if you want to help Karen run for County Commission, District 3, put it in the chat and she'll get a hold of you, or you can see her stuff, which she's putting in the chat. Karen, why don't you put it in again just to make sure it really does go in, and y'all can get together. And we'll be reaching out as well, but volunteers are needed and are very valued. So thank you. All right, that's District 3. On to District 4. Thank you, Karen. On to District 4, and running for District 4, which is most of Benzonia Township, is Patty Perquette. Patty?
Good morning. I'm Patty Perquette. I have lived in Benzie County for almost my whole life. I was born in Frankfurt. My parents were born in Frankfurt. And I went to Benzie. I went to Crystal Lake. My daughter goes to Crystal Lake. I would like to be more involved in everything that goes on here and really help people have a say in the beautiful county that we live in our state. So.
All right. That's not even 3 floors of an elevator speech. That's great. That's really quick.
I like to keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, that's good. That'll do you well, I'm sure. Does anybody have any questions for Patty? I'm sure some of you must know her because she's been here for so long. But if you want to say hello or leave some comments in the chat, that would be great.
Where do you live, Patty?
I live on Marshall Road. I'm literally right across the road from where the line of Homestead Township is. I'm just about 3 miles from the high school. And I did see some names in here I recognize. Mr. Ross was my 2nd grade teacher. Reverend Steve, I was friends with his daughters when I was in elementary school. I think my daughter's preschool teacher is in here. I see lots of names I know.
Great.
Hey, Mrs. Hahn remembers you, and your brother went on close up with her.
Oh yeah.
DC. Sean.
Yep.
She was the close up advisor at that point.
Patty, did you go to the close up? Were you part of that?
I did. I was part of that. I did have a great time, and I really want to go back to Washington, D.C. just for museums.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, I presume you've put your stuff in the chat so people can contact you, right?
I will after this.
Okay. Please do that. And if you'd like to help Patty win District 4, we'll talk. We'll be getting together and building a nice team around you, Patty. And thank you so much for running. And it's such a pleasure to meet you. Really is. Okay.
Hold on a second. I just want to say hi to Patty and let her know that I would be glad to help her with her campaign.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jim?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that we were looking for contact information for Karen. And Karen, it looks like it has not gone into the chat at this point. So I'm not sure if you're maybe not addressing it to everyone or if it hasn't gone in there. But anyway, for what it's worth.
While we have our next speaker, I will dig her stuff out and put it in for her, okay? All right, great. Okay, thank you, Mark. All right, moving right along, up in District 2, which is the west half of Elmira Township, and then Platte and Lake Townships. Do I have that right? I do, yeah. That's District 2. Stuart McFerrin is going to run for County Commission. Stuart, please say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, hello everybody. I know some of you, and I'm glad to be on the Zoom meeting. I grew up in North Muskegon, and I'm the son of Unitarian Universalists. My sisters and I were dedicated in the Unitarian Universalist Church, which for those of you that were baptized, I think it's just as good. And I attended Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. My first co-op job was at Harrisburg Independent Press in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I did a story on 3 Mile Island, and this lady had some goats that she didn't think were producing milk because of the radiation from the 3 Mile Island plant. But I was surprised the next winter when the 3 Mile Island accident happened at 3 Mile Island near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I graduated from Antioch with a BA in environmental studies. I worked for many years as a naturalist, wilderness leader, Appalachian School of Experience, group and individual growth, and a number of other programs. I worked for Traverse City Area Public Schools and their outdoor ed center. Was it and TBA ISD? I was a naturalist at Innisfree Environmental Ed Center. I worked as a tree planter and a deckhand in the Manitou Passage on a commercial fishing boat. And in 1987, I bought property on the Platte River, and I've been here pretty much ever since. I have not been active in politics or, Benzie County politics, but I feel like it's about time I step up. And I was helped with that with my neighbor, Mark. And I'd like to thank Mark Willett Green for not only saying he would be my campaign manager, but also signing on the dotted line and my application where he is the designated record keeper. So thank you, Mark. Currently, I teach swimming at the YMCA. I love teaching swimming to little kids. I do not believe in sink or swim. So when just the other day, I was in the water with a small child who was sinking, and I threw him a noodle. And I feel the same thing about politics. I feel like government should be able to help people in different ways. I believe in that. Also, I'm a freelance writer for the Freshwater Reporter and couple other publications. So if you want to know what I feel about different issues, you can Google freshwater-reporter.com and see some of my articles there. Also had an article in the Grand Traverse Journal a number of years ago about the history of gun legislation in the Grand Traverse region, which is also something that if somebody's interested, they should read that. Some of the issues I'm interested in is getting better broadband internet in Benzie County, childcare and housing. And I just had a discussion with Josh Stoltz at Grow Benzie yesterday, and I'm gonna be in touch with him about different aspects that a county commissioner could work on.
This?
And one last thing. So this Thursday, I'm going to be on WNMC morning show at 7:30. Whenever there's a new issue of the Freshwater Reporter that comes out, I volunteer at WNMC, the college radio station. So if you want to tune in for that, that's this Thursday at 7:30.
Great. Thank you very much, Stuart. It's so great to have you with us. Mark, have you seen any questions in the chat?
No, just some attaboys and comments. Nothing to bring up.
Okay, great.
Did anybody say I should get baptized?
I think they were thinking it. I don't know if it was actually documented.
It looks like you need a haircut. I'd suggest a haircut. Was it like that when we interviewed you?
All right. So listen, Stuart, please put your contact information, or maybe Mark's going to do that because he's the manager. Put the contact information in there, and please get a hold of Stuart if you want to help. He's going to run against Art Janot, who's the chair of the Benzie County Board of Commissions, and it would be so nice to have a hot race up there in Platte and Elmira and Lake Townships. That would be really a lot of fun. So please do that. Okay, and I just also want to say, we did also recruit 4 more people to run as stand-in candidates in the other 4 districts. We feel it's very important that people have a choice when they vote for county commissioner, that it's not a blank slot for the Democrat, that we give you a chance to vote for Democrats, and it'll help us see what the support is out there in your area, and it will also tell people, hey, there are Democrats here. A lot of people don't know that we're around. They just don't know. So it's a good way to tell them too. So we want to thank Berta Maserve, who's running in District 1, Teresa Pfeiffer, who's running in District 5, John Beeman, who's running in District 6, and Don Smeltzer, who's running in District 7. They will not be campaigning, but their names will be on the ballot, and we hope you'll look for that when you go vote. And I just want to thank them for doing that. It's somewhat of a commitment. And for the first time in a really long time, we'll have a Democrat on every slot in Benzie's County Commission race, which is just,
Great.
that's
Yay.
some history, folks. It really is. Okay, we're 3 minutes late. Jim, I apologize. Jim Olson is here. He wants to talk to us about line 5. A lot has been going on. So Jim will talk for 15 or so minutes, and we're happy to take your questions after that. But before we go to that, I'll just say once more, please go to the chat right now and tell us what you think about having an in-person meetings at headquarters, having these meetings there instead of just on Zoom. Let us know. We want to hear from you. Jim, please take it away.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to do this update. We did this about a year or so ago, and a lot's happened every year. There's more and more. I'm going to jump right into this. Jim, would you do multiple share, and I can pop up the PowerPoint to move us along here? Okay, everybody see that? Okay, can everybody see this? No? Shoot.
Jim, you're muted.
Jim,
you
you're
are
muted.
muted.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking for your square here.
It's not working.
There it is. Okay, great. Here you come.
Just a second.
All right, you're a co-host.
There we go. Did you share?
Yes, I just did. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, good. Thank you. So let me pull this up again, and I'm using double screens here, so I don't know why that's not working. Okay, there we go. Can you see that?
No.
No? I'll be darned. Jim, it doesn't seem that we're sharing here. Hold on, we'll try it again.
Maybe using the wrong screen.
There we go.
There it is. There you go.
Yes.
But that's not what I want you to see. So, oh, geez.
Jim, you'll have to click stop sharing and then click on, when you click.
Yeah, I'll start over. Yeah, I don't know why I'm clicking on what I have and it's not coming up, so we'll do it again. Shoot, should have done this before. Oh. Yeah, I've got some problem going on here. I apologize. I'm going to have to just, I'm just going to have to do this differently. I don't want to hold people up. It's unfortunate that you can't see the slideshow. The topic today is the update of line 5. I call this the showdown. What we really have right now is a showdown, not only between the state of Michigan and Enbridge and the citizens that have fought so hard to bring about the revocation of line 5 in the Straits of Mackinac, but we now have a major political showdown, including this year's election with the candidates from the governor, the secretary of state, and our attorney general Nessel, but also the crucial candidates, some of you at the local level and for the state legislature. And surrounding this universe of line 5 is a lot of pressure from a lot of different places, including the Canadian government, all of the petroleum industry, the trade unions. And so we're at a major crossroads with line 5. This has been going on for 7 years. And we know very well what the answer is. The governor revoked this easement and to shut down the existing line in 2020 and filed a lawsuit in 2020. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We know that the Attorney General Nessel filed a lawsuit in 2019 to have a court revoke and shut down this line 5. The facts are overwhelming. The law is in favor of the state, but the influence and interests that have been brought to bear on this have made it very difficult. One influence is the Canadian government's and Enbridge getting the Canadian government to play a card called the 1977 Pipeline Treaty. The 1977 Pipeline Treaty was an agreement entered into between Carter and the Canadian Premier. And it simply says that the two countries guarantee that crude oil will flow across each other's boundaries in existing pipelines and future pipelines. However, the provision is enforceable only by the countries and through an arbitration, which is binding, so it never ends up in court. Secondly, the treaty says that it's subject to the approval by other governments. And third, the treaty has to do with the pipelines, but nowhere in the treaty does it say that Congress and the countries intend to displace the rights of states and provinces over the title which the states hold as sovereign for every person, every resident in that state or province. And that title is called the public trust doctrine. And that public trust prohibits the alienation or transfer of an easement, in this case, where is for a primary public purpose or where there is a threat of material impairment or an existing material impairment. That last standard was the basis of the revocation actions by the governor enforced in the 2020 case and by Attorney General in the 2019 case. So very solid basis. What we have is an attack on the title of every state to their navigable waters and the lands and the ecosystem and the rights of fishing, boating, swimming, and drinking. And I've said this before. But we're looking at a fundamental principle of US constitutional law and the creation of every state in the country, including Michigan, which became a state in 1837. And this is not to be subordinated by anything but other navigational purposes needed by the people of the United States or by other foreign relations in terms of shipping across and traveling across these navigable waters. It has nothing to do with reserving power to Congress to pass treaties to subordinate this important cornerstone of our livelihood, our life and sustainability. Yet, what we have is an effort by Enbridge, which so far has stalled the revocation and the shutdown of this existing line. And you've all heard and read about the condition of this line. Just briefly, we started out with a design by Bechtel in '53 that buried the pipeline in the straits. It was designed to be buried, to be out of the way of ship anchors and to be out of the way of currents. By the late 1980s and through the 1990s, Enbridge realized they had a problem and tried to secure the pipeline to the bottom. Currents were scouring under the pipeline. They didn't tell anybody about this until 2001, when they filed an emergency application with the state of Michigan on a napkin. I'm exaggerating, but not much. That basically said, we have an emergency here. We need 16 supports. And what they did was start a precedent with the state's cooperation to suspend the pipeline, stabilize it with 4 to 8 foot supports up in the water column. We now have in 2022, 217 supports in about 3 miles. If you can imagine, out of the 9 miles of pipelines under the straits, 3 miles of it, 1/3 is suspended in the water column. Not only that, these are areas that are perpendicular to the shipping lane. And so when you look at it across the shipping lane, it's much more than 1/3. The suspended portion is about 50%. So you got a 50% shot or more of anchors hitting this pipeline. We know for a fact that 3 anchors or catenary events have struck the pipeline and or the supports, including the currents, that have dented and fortunately did not rip the pipeline out. We also know that the damages are anywhere from 2 billion, 1.8 billion, according to a conservative report, up to 6 billion based on Robbie Robinson's report at Michigan State University, a PhD in economics and natural resource damage. And if a major release shuts down the shipping lane through the up to the Canadian Soo and through the Canadian Soo into Lake Superior, the damages could be $45 billion within 3 or 4 weeks. So we're talking about something massive, and I'll go on now. That was the basis of the revocation. So here's where we're at. Enbridge, when the 2020 case was filed, Enbridge filed a petition for federal removal. This gets very complicated legally, but the short of it is, Enbridge said, there's a federal issue here because of this 1977 treaty, pipeline treaty, and because of safety standards under the Federal Pipeline Safety Act, which have to do with the safety and operation of a pipeline once it's in place. But as I said, neither the treaty nor this Pipeline Safety Act has anything to do with locating and making decisions about by the state with respect to who uses and why and when its public trust resources. Nonetheless, the federal judge, Judge Neff in the Western District, agreed with Enbridge and found that there was a major federal question concerning foreign relations because of the treaty, and that the safety standards somehow had something to do with location. She got it wrong. The question was whether to appeal. The state decided not to appeal, and here's why. There's a 2019 case that I mentioned by Attorney General Nessel. That case seeks the same relief as the 2020 case, but a judicial court revoking the easement and shutting it down, a state court, rather than Governor Whitmer revocation. So we already have a 2019 case in existence. So the prudent thing for the state to do was to voluntarily dismiss the 2020 case before Judge Neff and Enbridge had a trial in federal court and got their hands on it, because they hadn't answered the complaint yet. And if there's no answer to the complaint under federal and state court rules, you can withdraw a case voluntarily until it's answered. So now we have the 2019 case. Enbridge turned around and filed a petition for removal this last year in 2021 to do the same thing they did to the 2020 revocation. That is now pending in front of Judge Neff. The arguments against this, and we think they're compelling, various organizations, including FLOW, filed amicus briefs, friends of the court briefs, along with the state, pointing out to the court that in 2019, Enbridge had 30 days to remove it, and they certainly didn't think of it then. Enbridge says, well, we didn't know about it until the judge made this 2020 decision about a federal question. Well, that wasn't true, because Enbridge briefed and argued in the state court in a motion that the state's court jurisdiction was preempted. So we're pretty confident that Judge Neff, she better, will send this 2019 case back to state court. If it happens, then that case will proceed to a hearing, a trial to shut down Line 5. So that's where the legal landscape exists at this point. Let me bring into play three other things. One is the public trust doctrine that we're talking about, just so you know, is a continuing duty on the part of the state to make sure there's never an impairment for public trust resources. That's why a 1953 easement can be revoked in 2020 or by a court in this 2019 case. That is often lost on Enbridge and others claiming vested property rights, but there are no vested property rights under law in the public trust waters and bottomlands of the Great Lakes. Secondly, the treaty has been invoked by Canada. The clause regarding binding arbitration has been invoked by Canada. So another arena was opened up and exists between the Secretary of State's office and the Minister of Foreign Relations in Canada, in which discussions have taken place, but no progress made. The Biden, and so that's where that is. The fourth arena is the obvious one and the most important one to all of us right now, and that's the political arena. The political arena is affecting the treaty negotiations. It affects how the federal government might get involved and view the Pipeline Safety Act and the treaty by saying that these things do not preempt the state's public trust title. So that's one political aspect. The other political aspect is what we face now. Look, we know very well that Ukraine and the climate change issues are at cross purposes, and that those two issues underlie the question of whether or not crude oil should flow in Line 5. We can't deny the reality of that. We cannot deny the reality of that this year. What needs to happen is that we need to re-elect Governor Whitmer, Attorney General Nessel, and Secretary of State Joyce Benson. Her, of course, the latter being important because of the electoral integrity of the electoral process, and we don't lose control over that. But in terms of our state representatives and state senators and these three women from Michigan, I guess, the importance of this cannot be overstated. I know that there are people who are upset. There's people who are disgruntled with how things have happened on Line 5, in particular, the governor's position on the tunnel, which is being reviewed in a hearing that was completed and argued and now will be decided by the Public Service Commission. And that's a whole nother arena, the tunnel arena, which I'll end with, all of which are involved in politics. I think we have to understand that Nessel and Whitmer have to be very careful about how they play the tunnel, because that's one of the solutions. In fact, there are alternatives. In fact, because of climate change, in fact, because of the shift of the economy to renewable sources of energy, Line 5 will not be necessary. It isn't even necessary now. And this tunnel would be for 99 years. It's not needed. And so it really is somewhat of a red herring here, because Enbridge would rather have the existing line. They make over $1.5 million a day off that line. So you can imagine how happy they are that the line continued to exist. That said, I want to emphasize that we have to support the election, the re-election, because they will not have to face another re-election. Well, the Attorney General can, but not the governor. So she'll be free to do what she needs to do after October or November, but we need to get them elected, and we need people in the state house that shifts the balance, and the Senate to get control of this. And you all have been working hard. It has nothing to do with my update, but thank God that you're all working so hard. And I notice how many people are on this call and really care about where we sit. So I'm going to end there. I mean, if you have questions about the tunnel proceeding, I can fill you in on where that sits. But I think I should stop there so we can have a little Q&A if we even have time. Thank you.
Jim, thank you for that very passionate and well-organized presentation. I really, really, really appreciate your coming on a Saturday morning to do this.
Well, I apologize for what happened. I don't know
well.
why I couldn't get that thing up, but sometimes it's better for us to go face to face without this darn.
I thought it was just fine. I really do. Folks, are there some questions you'd like to ask Jim? Please, please speak up if you have a question. We're just going to open the floor.
Jim, there was one that came in from Michael Hertz earlier, and there's been so many comments. I think maybe Michael should ask it direct. Oh, here we go. Is it known how much Enbridge makes from line 5?
Yeah, I think he answered it at the end.
Okay.
$1 million a day.
Yeah, it's over. It's about $1.5 million a day. So you can multiply that by 365 and understand what we're talking about here. I should say, in relation to this financial issue, if you think of Enbridge trying to move oil, one of the things to understand is that when the Kalamazoo River ruptured, the pipeline and caused $1 billion of damage, that line was replaced and doubled in size. It was a 400,000 barrels a day line. It went to 800,000 barrel in design. They're still using it for 400. Line 5 is 540,000 barrels today. It was originally 300,000 barrels, but Enbridge manipulated the pressure, the PSI parameters by putting in anti-friction fluids in the pipeline to get more volume. But my point is, it's with the decreasing demand for crude oil and the need to shift because of climate change and the need for national security because of Ukraine. If we get off gas, we don't need gas and fossil fuels. You know, we won't be fighting about oil and gas pipelines through the Ukraine to Germany or in the Middle East. We need to do this for so many reasons. But my point is, we could move 400,000 barrels of that 540 in line 5 today through by adjusting and expanding using the extra design capacity in line 6B, which is called line 78 now. And just think of that, they can still make their money until the demand diminishes to the point where it's no longer needed. And we don't need a tunnel and we don't need this line right now. We should have adjusted 2 or 3 years ago, but unfortunately, that's not the way the world works.
Barry Hahn, do you have a question?
Yeah. Yes. Who? Did somebody have a question?
Jim?
Barry,
Barry, you're on mute.
Barry has one.
I put it in the chat earlier. Again, I put the same one in the chat twice, but so don't have to do it twice. Can the petroleum products currently being sent through line 5 be transported in other ways, trucks, etc.? And what are the pros and cons of these options, especially compared to the severe disastrous impact of an underwater spill?
Yeah, okay, so real quick, I mean, Enbridge obviously takes the position that trucks and ships are afraid of horrible. In fact, trucks and trains transport a substantial part of our crude oil delivery systems in the United States, and they pick up a lot of extra. I mean, look, Bill Gates and friends, picked up interest in the train industry when the Keystone XL was going to go down. They were real quick to buy up stock in the train industry, believe me. So the fact is, you have on land, Barry and everybody, you have on land alternatives to the Great Lakes. This is the only crude oil pipeline in the Great Lakes, and the only situation where we have massive damage threatened. A rupture, a pipeline on land can cause a lot of damage because we know what happened to the Kalamazoo River. However, when it's not connected with water resources, it's much easier to recover. And in fact, the Kalamazoo River, as bad as it was easier to recover than the Great Lakes. The facts are that at best, 30% of the oil would be recovered in the event of a massive spill in the Straits of Mackinac. The other thing is, Barry and others, is as I just mentioned, there are massive thousands of miles of crude oil pipelines in the United States, which can be moved in either direction just by a simple logistical decision. It's a matter of logistics. Lastly, it's typically mostly pipeline on land in combination or complemented when necessary by truck and train. It's not rocket science. It's far better to use these other alternatives, in my opinion. The law actually requires other alternatives if they exist, but Enbridge won't admit that.
Is it a fair argument that those other methods of transportation, trucking and trains, would provide better long-term jobs? Because of course, when we talk to the other side, they whine about jobs, but a pipeline is a short-term job, maybe creator. But
the existing pipeline doesn't employ very many people. It's been there a long time and they have to manage it. The tunnel would employ a lot of people, but Enbridge wouldn't even sign wouldn't even go along with the state's effort to try to guarantee that half the workers would be from Michigan. And third, this job thing is a real nightmare to figure out. I'll be honest with you. But what we know so far, and I'm simplifying it, is that the decommissioning of Line 5 would produce a tremendous number of jobs. The readjustments required for the movement of oil through the extra capacity in Line 6B across southern Michigan that I told you about would produce a large number of jobs. And you combine that with what you just said, and you have very little impact on jobs. This is a trade union. This is the trade unions wanting their piece of this. All right, and there are other unions involved, but they're very much sitting on the sidelines. The other jobs problem we're having is that Canada is making somewhat important and real threats about the loss of jobs, because if Line 5 goes down, a great part of the Canadian chemical and plastics and refinery business is diminished. They're not going to allow that to be diminished. They can bring in oil from Ohio and Pennsylvania. And the fact is, I've just described, oil will flow in those pipelines thousands of miles. I had a map to show you today on the power side, but just imagine a cross-section of pipelines, north and south in this country and east and west, that exist to move crude oil when it's needed.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Thompson, you had a question?
Yes, Jim, do you have any idea when this 2019 lawsuit that was filed by Dana, do you have any idea when this is going to come to court?
It's in court.
Decided?
No, I don't. Here's what I do know. The tunnel decision will be decided by the Michigan Public Service Commission this year. Whether or not they wait until after the election, I don't know. Very important issue for our future in terms of whether we commit to 99 years of fossil fuels. The 2019 case is hung up in federal court on the petition to removal. So we have to wait for Judge Neff to decide whether or not Enbridge missed its 30-day time period or has some other technical way that they can be in federal court. We'll get that's been briefed, so we're going to get a decision on that sometime in the next 3 months, I would say. If the state wins that, it goes back to state court and proceeds through trial. That will take at least a year, at least.
Thank you.
And just one more final thing. Is there any way that the Biden administration can intervene on this or not?
Well, the Biden administration has done some things. One is on the Corps of Engineers has some jurisdiction under wetlands law and and some construction activities in the Straits of Mackinac based on its navigational structure authority. And they have ordered, I think with the help of the Biden administration, have ordered a full-blown environmental impact statement, which until now has been ignored. The state of Michigan, when they issued their permit, they shouldn't have for the tunnel, Eagle issued the permit, but the Corps disagreed and said there's going to be a full-blown EIS. That may also delay the Public Service Commission decision because there was not a full EIS in front of the Public Service Commission. So that's a good question. It's not a position that the pipeline should go right now, but it is a position that's helpful. Now, we also know that Biden has said we're opening up oil and gas production on federal lands. We need to replenish the reserve that we're on tapping for the Ukraine. So really, I mean, we're in a completely new level of controversy when it comes to Line 5. I think for all of us, there's a lot of steps for most people to get the message when we do the media and the campaign and the talking and all the things. You know, we have to vote, we have to educate, we have to donate, we have to participate, we have to protest, we have to rally, or the other side's going to win this. They're going to win this if we don't stand up big time. It can be done, but we have to get through this knot of people thinking that, well, because the price of oil is so high at the tank, we've got to have Line 5. That's ridiculous. And secondly, we don't need Line 5, and the prices wouldn't be high if we had other sources of energy in this country and more rapidly. So we have to think big picture and what is right in the long term, and what is right to shut down this existing line, tunnel aside. This existing line needs to go, people.
Thanks, Jim. Mike Ross, you have a question?
Yes, I do. With the upcoming election and those of us that are talking to voters and so forth, including Dr. Bob's constituents, what do we tell them when they say, oh, we won't have any natural gas, we're going to all freeze to death? I mean, what's the reality?
It's propane. On the full webpage, we have propane reports. Look, the propane issue is completely overstated. There was an alternative study. The minute Rapid River, which is the Enbridge station to bleed off the propane and put it in trucks and ship it. There are other companies in Western Wisconsin and Sioux that will be glad to put propane in their trucks and take it to customers. Yes, there might be a slight increase in expense, but the real increase in gas at the pump for cars and propane has nothing to do with whether Line 5 is there or not.
You know, Jim, I've always thought a good way to talk about that question about the propane and the UP is that this is an opportunity to break what is essentially a monopoly in a part of the UP where Enbridge has a monopoly.
Well, that was the finding. That was the finding of the committee that was put together to study that by Governor Whitmer. That there's a monopoly and the prices over the long run would go down if there's more competition.
Great, that's cool.
Last I knew, the UP was always north of the Straits.
Any other questions for Jim?
John Beeman has a question.
Thank you.
Yeah. How much of the oil or whatever that comes through Line 5 is used in the lower peninsula?
About 12%, John.
Thank you. I didn't think any of it was. I thought it just went to Sarnia.
Yeah, there's a little bit that runs from Port Huron down to Marathon in Detroit, and then arguably some say to Toledo, but the BP plant in Toledo really doesn't. They have so many other sources, and Marathon also already gets crude oil from tar sands through Line 6B or 78 across southern Michigan.
I see.
Yeah, great. Rick, do you have a question? Rick Rob? No? Oh, okay. You're muted anyway.
Hey, Jim,
Yes.
Barbara Stammeris has a question. I don't understand her question, so maybe she could just verbalize it.
Barb?
Okay, well, let me look at the chat.
Barb, would you?
Yeah, I can. Jim?
Yeah,
I
what's
think
the
it'd be-
effect? Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
All right, if the MPSC, the Public Service Commission, said no to the tunnel, Enbridge has said it just means that we have to put up with the old line 5 longer. What impact do you think a no from the Public Service Commission would have on line 5?
Well, my view is this, whether there's a tunnel or not, line 5 in the Straits factually and legally has to be shut down and will be shut down.
Absolutely.
And the other point I would make again is that if they don't get the tunnel, the question is whether or not they have an alternative. And the fact is they do have an alternative to the existing line. It may take 2 years to adjust, but that's it. And they could immediately reduce the flow from 540 to 300,000 barrels and increase the surveillance of the line pending that 2-year adjustment period. So it is not necessary. The reason they say this is we have to blame Governor Snyder for cutting that deal in 2018 because Enbridge got the governor to sign a deal that connected the tunnel to line 5. So if there's no tunnel, there's a provision that says until there's a tunnel, Enbridge gets to operate the existing line. That was a contract. It was not authorized under the laws of Michigan involving an agreement that allowed for an extended use of line 5 in the Straits of Mackinac. That did not go through our Great Lakes Submerged Lands Act. It was not authorized. It's completely void, but we haven't been able to get somebody to knock out. We need to knock out this third agreement in 2018 and decouple the tunnel from the existing line because they both should be denied on the grounds that are before each. Let me say something about the tunnel, everybody. We hear a lot about the need for this tunnel. I've already addressed that. But in that hearing that we had last fall and all the parties briefed, Flo filed an amicus brief specifically on the Environmental Protection Act in Michigan, which the commission agreed for the first time in state history that it must consider and determine likely impacts and alternatives before it can approve a pipeline under the Public Service Commission jurisdiction. This was a big deal. So we had a hearing in part on likely effects. And the commission also ruled that it included climate change effects to the Great Lakes and the people of the state of Michigan. If there are such effects and the commission makes those findings, it cannot approve the project unless Enbridge and the commission can make a finding that no feasible and prudent alternative exists. I don't think they can make that decision, that no alternative exists. And so on its own merits that Enbridge has put forward, if the commission denies this, they would have valid grounds to do it, and it would not have anything to do with the factual legal responsibility under public trust law to shut down existing line 5. And we won't have any major upheaval in the state of Michigan, by the way, because of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Barry, you have another, Tom, Mike?
Better go to Tom first.
Yeah, go ahead. Tom?
Yeah, hi. This is very legalese.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
not that familiar with the whole topic here. I just have some simple questions that I think a lot of people have, which would be, it seems like the argument against this to begin with is that it's environmentally unsafe. And that if there was a way to make it environmentally safe, perhaps it would be okay. I'm not saying I agree either way. I'm just asking, what I'm asking is this whole idea of putting it in a tunnel, encasing everything in a tunnel that probably could not leak. Why is that not going to work? Or why is that a bad idea? Or what's the dangers of that?
Yeah, Tom, that's a very good question. And I will be the first to say that if the line goes into the tunnel, all right, in concept, it was supposed to be buried in the bedrock. And if a line was in bedrock, it would be more environmentally safe than the unsafe condition of the existing line. The problem is twofold. One is in the midst of studying the geotechnology under the straits, the firms, including an independent firm that submitted a report to Eagle during the permit process for the tunnel, found that there was unconsolidated material to a deep level through the bedrock. And in fact, that portion of the tunnel would not go through bedrock. That then changed the entire analysis because it was no longer a bedrock pipeline. So the question then was, do we have enough core samples to know how large that unconsolidated material area under the straits is? The answer is the design that Enbridge put forth is based upon very few samples, scientifically and statistically inadequate to make a conclusion that it's environmentally safe. So we have a big hole in the science because of the lack of data, Tom, and everybody. The second thing is that it turns out that the tunnel becomes a bomb, because in the event of a failure of the pumping and or a leak and the accumulation of liquids, including the natural gas liquids, which are 20% of the time going through the pipeline, there could be a massive explosion of the tunnel and a complete failure of the line, coupled with this lack of data regarding unconsolidated materials and what would happen. That's pretty important. So my answer is that we don't know that it's environmentally safe. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that the tunnel is not just construction and impact. The tunnel has to do with a 99-year commitment by the site administration for a lease to operate this tunnel at a time in history when the last thing we need is 99 years of infrastructure to transport crude oil for people to consume when we need to stop consuming it. Did everybody see the IPCC International Panel on Climate Change came out with its 2022 synthesis report, which everybody's been waiting for. And the time is so urgent, I can't even go into the details. Please Google IPC 2020 synthesis report, executive summary, and you'll see how serious is climate change. We know where it's at. I'm preaching to the choir. But the fact is, whether you're a choir member or not, you're going to be singing a bad song if we don't get this thing done. So that's the other issue in the tunnel. It's not an environmental aside, it's the climate change issue. And also the public trust question of whether or not the state wants to commit the bottomlands of the state of Michigan to oil pipeline that's not needed.
Barry, did you have another question?
Yeah, Jim, thank you for that. I think that you're right on the money there. I'm wondering about these labor unions. You talked about organized labor. Is there enough discrepancy between the guys that drive trucks and the guys that build pipelines that we could hope for some sort of I'm just trying to think how we can get into the other side politically and get some support for alternatives to this.
Well, that's outside, I'm not, I just don't have the knowledge to answer that, Barry. I wish I did.
Okay.
I can give you my anecdotal, participating in discussions over the last several years. My anecdotal experience is that the unions don't like to cross each other.
Yeah.
Right. And
I have a question if I could get in.
Thank you.
Stuart.
Jim, what is the position of the Canadian government in this? Now, are they?
Well, Stuart, the Canadian government sat on the sidelines for umpteen years And suddenly, somehow, Enbridge, when Governor Whitmer filed the 2020 when she revoked the existing line and filed that 2020 suit to enforce the revocation, Canada finally, Enbridge goes to the Canadian government and they finally realize they have a problem. Look, Canada's Achilles heel is that they, as much as they think positively and optimistically about environmental issues, they're a natural resources export country. All of their programs are supported by massive exports of oil and gas and mining and timber. So they got involved, filed an amicus brief, and is fronting for Enbridge, basically, to turn the issue into an international issue that convinces the courts that there's something here that preempts the state absolute authority, according to Supreme Court decisions, over its own public trust bottomlands.
Okay, another question is, you mentioned earlier about all of a sudden there's this influences with Enbridge, and is dark money influencing this from even to the Canadian government, or Enbridge is now getting support from these other dark money interests?
I don't know. I wish we had better finance campaign laws to know more about this.
Well, with some
We didn't have Citizens United, and we didn't have, corporations as persons. And we didn't have free speech as economic. But I mean, that's the problem. We can't. I don't know of any substantive proof that would substantiate that, even though we smell it all the time and everything.
Okay. Well, sounds like several of this group, all of a sudden, all this extra money and support came to Enbridge's side. And I'm just suspect that that's what's happening. So, well, it is a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, look, these companies, they'll give money to anybody that's a nonprofit and take a contribution and get their influence. I don't know that it should ever qualify. We know about those things shouldn't be deductible, but
but if we knew that, you could point as one direction to kind of aid in this.
I wish I knew
point to
more.
the bad guys.
So that's a good point, Stuart. And we should, I will relay that back to people to see what I can find out about how much we've dug into that question of where the money flies. But the money flies, I'm sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
One more question from Barry. Barry?
I just forgot to lower my hand. I'm sorry.
Okay, great.
I'd just like to make a quick comment on what Mike Ross had to say about the propane up in the UP. And Jim, to let you know, I tell all my UP friends and enemies all the time that a slight increase in their cost of propane doesn't even hold a candle to when this line ruptures, not if it ruptures, but when it ruptures, because it'll be complete devastation. I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it'll be complete devastation to our state and to our Great Lakes that we'll never recover from. So a slight increase in propane prices, that doesn't even hold a candle to what's going to happen if that thing has gotten out of there.
Yeah. The other, I mean, we've covered this already, but that's a very good point. It underscores the ultimate result here is not a parade of horrors. It's a fairly simple adjustment. And yes, we have to be conscious of people in rural areas that are on propane. Judy and I are on propane, but we get propane. We don't, it's not tied to line 5. It can be trucked from various sources in the Lower Peninsula. So we have to be mindful, but it's about 12% of the UP population when you run through, when you analyze the false numbers, I shouldn't say false, but numbers put up by Enbridge that are skewed, they don't, go into the actual number of people that are actually part of the UP population that are impacted. That doesn't diminish the fact that they're important, every one of them. And then we get back to the questions of monopoly and pricing, not that they won't get it.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
I think we'll call it there. Jim, thank you so much for your work over the years on this. You've given so much, and
I'm one of a parade of thousands.
Yes, 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 that's very true.
Thank you. Thank all of you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, if you want to go to the Flow website, I'm sure there's more information there, or the Oil and Water Do Not Mix website are two great places to look if you want to spend some activist energy on that.
Yeah.
One final reminder, please let us know what you think about doing the next meeting in person in the chat. Please save your chat. There's a whole bunch of really, really good information in there. And you do that by going down to the right-hand corner there and looking for those little dots and clicking on them, follow it. You'll be able to do it. Our next meeting will be the third Saturday of May. I don't have my calendar right in front of me, but it's the third Saturday of May. We'll be announcing a great speaker soon. We'll have some more candidates to announce for you and some great special events that are coming up. And we'll remind you one more time, the 14th of May, we're raising money for trade school and college scholarships. Keep that date open, okay? Thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Jim.
Jim, I have one 1 minute announcement.
Oh, yeah?
On the chat, I put my information, and I am looking for volunteers to do the Adopt a Highway this year. We've managed to do it for many, many years now, but we need some new people to participate. And I even put the dates that are up there. They're a week-long window, or I don't know, 10-day window for each one of the pickups. We have 2 sections that we clean up, and I just need a lot of volunteers so that we can take some of these tired legs off the road.
Mike Ross, this is Aubrey. I also
Or-
put it in the Facebook group, so hopefully that helps.
Well, okay,
Thanks,
thank
Aubrey.
you.
Thanks, Aubrey.
Thank you, Aubrey.
Okay, everyone, we'll be together again. Thank you very much for
Put
being
it on the webpage.
We will.
Thanks, Jim.
Hi, Jane.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye,
Barb.
everybody. Stay well, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Blessings to all.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Happy trails.
Yeah, happy trails.
Thank you for
Baptized or not.
Thank you for everybody that showed up this morning.
Mary, don't
Yes?
don't forget to get dressed today.
I know, I'm slowly, I've been working on it during the meeting.
Okay, well, good.
I gotta tell you, I have a flannel bathrobe and I kind of like being in here.
It's still snowing, so don't rush it.
I know, you know, we're not into warm weather yet, you guys. I love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye and bye.
Love y'all.